Hello, hello, everyone. I am Siris Raquel Rivas Verdejo, Siris for many of you, and we're here for our May Being a Different Possibility for Families call. Thank you so much. We got some comments sent in, we got some questions sent in. I know for many families right now, as we're approaching the end of the school year, it's a busy time. So, thank you. Hopefully, this will contribute to y'all. This is going to be a super soft and gentle, nurturing call. There's going to be a lot of quiet moments for you to perceive what you perceive. But in case you're new to me or new to these calls, I am a family and child coach. I am a speech and language pathologist, learning behavioral specialist, and feeding therapist. And I really specialize no matter where the person is in their life trajectory, if they have a family or not, maybe they are dealing with past family events. I specialize in communication and behavior and self care, and then the systems that improve that for any aspect of your life. So, making sure that you have the communication, the habits, and the awareness of yourself with your body to be creating a life that works for you and for your loved ones. And so I'd like to welcome all of the parents, the educators, the caregivers, the professionals who are participating in our calls. Hi, hi, hi. Um, it's been a really interesting series so far. And, we've been doing these calls starting in 2023. Each theme has been different each month. Really appreciate your feedback on the themes and your enthusiasm, especially for those of you that can't make it on live. When I get those messages saying, I'm going to listen, I'm really excited about the replay. Thank you so much for holding this call. You send in some questions and comments. That just is super, super gratifying because I love knowing that this is landing in your world, this is resonating with you and contributing to you having more clarity and ease. So thank you for that. Um, each of our monthly calls have a different theme, like I mentioned, and it's really for anyone, be it parents, caregivers, educators, you name it, anyone who has either been a part of a family, has a family now, or is considering having a family in the future. If you work with families or not, all of that, you can add these tools to your repertoire and you can spread the word on how to have families feel more supported and less isolated. And it just so happens that over the 16, 17 years of working with families now in a professional capacity, I hear that theme over and over again, this idea of isolation, of feeling like there's not as much joy as they would like to have with their families, even if there's a lot of love. It's interesting. A lot of people assume that if there's a lot of love, there is a lot of ease or there's a lot of joy, and that's not always the case. And so don't feel like if you're listening to this call that by you getting this information, it is at all any kind of a judgment or an indication that there isn't love in your family and that you're not loving yourself. And what if we could care for ourselves more and make sure that as we're caring for ourselves and we're paying attention to how we communicate with our bodies and our mindsets, that we can actually be a greater invitation and example of what is possible for the little bodies that may be watching and for our inner children that may be needing some TLC, some tender loving care, no matter depending on what was going on in your childhood and in your past. So we're going to use a lot of multisensory supports. That's what we do in each of these calls. But this call today is going to be really unique, and I'm really excited about it because it shows the evolution of my work with families as well. I, for a long time, really kept the information about my therapeutic energy work separate from my more evidence based, very traditional trainings and doing speech and language therapy, learning behavioral therapy, and feeding therapy. And I found that that was actually really dishonoring of me and what I knew was possible, and also really a disservice to my families. And so for the families that have those X-Men people in them, for those that are really aware of energies that consider themselves very sensitive to environments, to emotions, to vibrations, to feelings and thoughts, this is going to be really, really powerful for you and really going to open up some more space for you. We're going to be looking at how we can thrive in our families using our perception our bodies and the actions that we can take so that we can truly soar, truly soar, considering all of our gifts and capacities, considering what we're aware of. And so we're going to actually get a chance to play with the energies of the living and dying body process. And perhaps this is the first time you've heard of this body process. Perhaps you've been aware of me and my discussions around this for the last couple of years. This came about, gosh, in the last 5-6 years. Yeah, 5-6 years ago, I should say, when I was providing different private sessions, therapeutic energy work private sessions to people. And I have all these different trainings and techniques in my repertoire. And I was playing around and I would give a session of one or the other technique. There's so many. You can see it on empoweringlightlanguage.com/services. And I noticed that a new personality, a new vibration was coming about. And I was like, what is this? And I asked questions as I do with my body. And I noticed that the earth was also communicating with my body as well, which it did very often during all these different modalities. And yet it seemed so different. It was a different conversation. And so I leaned into it and I asked for feedback from my clients as to what they were picking up on, what they saw, what they felt, and all the other senses that were involved, because some of them would be smelling things, would be seeing things, would be hearing things. And they were really lovely in giving me this different information about this body process that was showing up. And I recognized that it was a unique modality in its own entity. And it was different than these other ones that I still use to this day, that I still value, that I'm still really grateful for. And as I was having conversations with my team at the time, they really encouraged me to come out of hiding with it. And it took a bit. I definitely played with it for a good year or two, only with clients and with family and with myself, and running it on myself and asking it questions before I chose to start talking about it more publicly, doing videos on it, and then with a lot more nudging from my team, both the unseen and seen teams, actually starting to provide classes where people could learn to give and receive this body process. And so one of the things that I realize that this invites us to is to look at where we are hiding our gifts and capacities with living, where we are actually have buried or shut down or blocked away this information that we could provide for ourselves, and then we can invite other people to know and to play with. And so each time I talk about it, it's very different because the world is different and bodies keep changing and evolving. My body's going through things, and there's different events going on in the world and that I'm aware of, as we all are. And so what this will be today is we're going to examine what information we have received from past events, from what's currently going on in the world, what emotions we felt, and what events we've experienced that we've made solid in our bodies or in our realities. Another way to put reality is our mindsets. Okay, it affects our bodies, our mindset, and it affects how we perceive our environment, how we perceive other people, situations, and things like that. It's basically these lenses that we can function from if we so choose to have certain mindsets. And so some mindsets are more effective and more empowering and clearer than other mindsets. And so I'd like for, as we're playing with these energies of the living and dying body process, for us to all be more clear in any way of what is not serving us, in what's not working for us, whatever is not congruent with what we'd like to have moving forward. And then also for us to have greater clarity and ease on what would create exuberant living for us. And for me, exuberant living is not just, I'm content, or this is okay, it's right? Instead, it's like, wow, I am so lit up. I'm really enthusiastic. I feel so, so grateful that I get to live this life, that I get to be with these people, I get to do this work on this planet. It's a whole other level of living. And it's not that you have that all the time, but you have it more times than not. And you get to lean into it and you're aware of how you could have more of it with your choices. So the lack of clarity and confusion gets reduced when you awaken these energies within your body. And so I'm going to play around with and call upon and activate these energies within your body. I'll be awakening it within my body, flowing it to you, showing you how you can use some of the hand movements and words of the living and dying body process to your benefit. And then I'll mention also some next steps. If you enjoy what you experience, if you enjoy what you perceive with your body, I'll mention 3 different ways that you can go deeper with it, and you get to choose which one, maybe all of them that you'd like. So 1, 2, or all 3 that you'd like to choose for yourself or for your family. I got some comments. I'm pausing right now to see if it's time to bring up some of these comments that were sent in. I'm going to wait just a moment, maybe in the next like 3 minutes or so. I'm going to start the body process first and some of the considerations of the body process. But one of the things that people really like about it is that they're clear on where to devote their time and energy to as they awaken these energies within their bodies. And I think this is really, really important for families, really important for caregivers and those that are the givers and healers of the world, the ones that are often putting other people ahead of themselves. Is sometimes you get into an overwhelm or burnout because you're saying yes, yes, yes to potentially more things than you can really handle. And it allows you to be clear on what your yes is, what your no is. And if it is a no, for you to have the confidence and the ability to say no and respect yourself in that way, and also respect the other person and not tell them that it's a yes when it's not, and create that friction, create conflict or resentment on either side. So that was one of the things that I really love about this, and that the more I run it on myself and that I've been running it on other people, it makes that very, very clear. There is no way that you don't know, oh, this is actually what's going to work for me. Oh, this is actually what's going to work for everybody involved. Or wow, that's super, super not going to work. Am I willing to actually be guided by that awareness or not? Okay. So one of the comments that were sent in was holding a lot of opposites these days and grateful for my body's wisdom and capacity. So this is really taps into families are juggling a lot of different needs, even if it's just one child or even if it's just 2 adults, 3 adults, like they're juggling a lot of different needs, a lot of wishes and hopes and gifts and capacities and goals. And so how do you navigate all of that and consider all of that while still nurturing yourself? That's one of the things that will become clear as we awaken these energies within our bodies. Okay. So let's go ahead and get started and let's start activating this energy. And then I'll bring up some things periodically as you perceive how the energies show up in your world and in your body. So, unlike past replays of this conversation, I'm actually going to include the video replay because I'm going to demonstrate some of these movements. And as much as I'm going to do my best to narrate it, I find that it's helpful for people to see it and for them to actually feel that they're accompanied by me in doing this. It's kind of like a little mini intro to the class where we go through all of the different hand movements and all of the different words and all the different ways to activate this. So you'll see me doing that. You may also want to check out some of if you are in my email list, you might have seen that I sent out a replay for when I was interviewed on the Holistic Wellbeing Summit. And I also talk about some of these considerations in that interview as well. It is a beautiful complement to what we're going to be talking about today. But today is going to really be addressing primarily the families and some of the questions and comments that were sent in. So you have 2 hands, right? And one of them is representative of living and one of them is representative of dying. And it doesn't matter which one's which because they're both there. There's actually not a separation between the two unless you make it a separation. And I think a lot of us do because we've been erroneously told that living is good and dying is bad. And they're actually both energies and awarenesses that we should embrace. And I'll tell you why. Living is actually what we add, who we add, the places we add, the information, the trainings, the energies that we add to create more. So some examples of that for families would be where we add certain schools to our kids' lives or where certain experiences, maybe it's sports and extracurricular activities. All right. Each time a child is added to a family or a person comes to visit, right? Each family event, birthdays and weddings and baby showers, bridal showers, those are things that you add that can be added. And not all of them, just because you're adding them, will create more. So you'll be aware of which will create more ease, more clarity, more of what you'd like as a part of your life, more of what your family is looking for and will work for your family. Maybe you're adding on therapists. Maybe you're adding on a nurse. I have a friend who just hired a 24-hour nurse to care for her mom in their home. And is that creating more ease? Is that creating more space? Is that honoring and respecting each person in the family to do that? I definitely needed that. And we chose that, my mom and I did, when we were caring for my grandmother 24/7. At some point, we had to get some support by a nurse. They weren't 24/7 available to us, but they were there multiple times a week while we were working to provide her companionship and stimulation and conversation, outings, things like that. And then there's the dying. This is not what we've been told. Dying is what we let go of to create more. So maybe you let go of your past experiences with your family. Maybe you let go of abuse and neglect, maybe trauma. Maybe you're letting go of the judgment of what you're supposed to do as a parent, as a caregiver, so that you have more ease. You have more clarity on who you are as a parent, who you are as a daughter or a son, okay? Who you are as a sibling. So some other examples of what you may consider letting go of. Ooh. Injuries is coming up, interestingly. Bullying, either inside your family or outside of your family. Because even when we're bullied outside of our families, it may come up and impact our families. And this is actually making me think of an adult who's a parent and they were being bullied by their boss. They had a tyrannical boss that was really verbally and emotionally abusive, very manipulative, and it was understandably a source of stress. And then when they would come home to their family, guess what? That was still on them. That was still in their world. And often that was locked up in their bodies. And the kids would pick up on it, their spouse was picking up on it. What if you could, on your way home, or even while at work, dealing with that horrible boss, you could let this go from your body and your reality so you didn't hold on to it and it wouldn't be a source of trauma for you or something that made you more tired, made you more irritable, made you more bitter, things like that. These are some of the ways that my families have used this body process. So notice that I am crossing my hands. It doesn't matter if it's the left hand or the right hand that is in front. You move it in a circular motion, both of them together, crossing in the middle in front of you. You can move the hands facing toward you. If you do it this way and your palms are facing toward you, you're running on yourself. If your palms are facing outward, you're running it on others. It could be running it on your kids. It could be running it on your spouse. I'll do this with my partner. I'll run this body process on them when they're really stressed or when they feel like they're fighting something off and they have more ease. when they have a headache, when they have nausea, things like that. And the kids love, love, love doing this. They think it's a playtime, it's a dance. And so, like, oh, yeah, or I'm just waving around my magic hands. They actually, I've had kids, is super, super sweet. Well, they will offer to run this on music. Are you a little tired, Miss Rivas? Can I help you? Can I do this to you? Can I do some magic on you? It's like, yes, you are magic. Give me all the magic. Thank you. I want to remember right now that I am magic too. That's what it does. It reminds us of the magic that we are. And kids know that they are until adults tell them they're not. When was the last time you were told you are magic and you actually believed it? So go ahead and run this for a while. We're just going to be here with this energy flowing for a minute. If you're catching this as a replay later, be it those of you that are live now, because you get to listen to this as many times as you want afterwards, or those that are not live now and are just catching it for the first time, second time, third time afterwards, just notice how your body's feeling. I bring up some things that may bring up a charge and energy in your body. And then as I'm running this, where does it shift and how does it shift? And so you can do this hand movement over any part of your body, your head. If you feel like kind of a mental fog, lack of clarity there mentally, it could be just where your body tells you to go. It doesn't have to have any particular rationalization. It could just be like, oh, this is where I'm pulled to flow energy. Go over your heart, right? Your shoulders, your knees, woo, right? I am very intentionally having my palms outward because I'm contributing this to all the bodies that are here and that are be listening in the future. But I definitely run this on myself and it's so yummy. Yes, a comment in the chat. Yes, you can take a break and rest your arms, your shoulders. This is a bit of a workout. I get it. It'll still keep running, just not as dynamically as when you have your hands doing the hand movement. This is the first of 5 hand movements that are part of a full session of the living and dying body process. And it's all about where we are aware of living and where we're aware of dying, where we've locked that information, that those gifts and capacities in our bodies, in our mindsets, in our realities. So that's what we're doing. We're actually unlocking that information so we can actually have it available instead of feeling like, I don't know what to do next. I don't know what I'm aware of. I don't know what would be exuberant living for me. I don't know what it would work for my family. I'm at a loss. Okay, a question sent in. How do I use this to deal with family conflict? Woo! Notice and perceive the energy of that question, y'all. Do you y'all, yeah, right? You're like, oh, because families don't have conflict, right? It's all love, all the time, 24/7. And I grab a sip of tea for a moment here. Let that energy be there. Mm. Ooh. Okay. A couple ways. So you can turn this on yourself before a family meeting, before a discussion, during. Like I'll do little mini movements in my lap, like this, instead of like the big ones like this. I'll do this. It's still overlapping, right? During certain heated debates in my family, when I'm calling certain family members where there's a tension, I already know it. even before we get on the phone, or while we're on the phone afterwards, to like detox any of those residual energies of the conversation. I'm like, here we go. And I run it on myself. And I go, whoo, right? And you ask, living and dying body process run. Living and dying body process run. And so this, for this hand movement, you move it to whichever place, and anywhere you move it to, as soon as you move it to a new place, you say living and dying body process run, to have it run and actually be fully activated. You may perceive some of the aspects of it at a more dialed down version, a more dialed down way until before then, and then it really ramps it up when you say that. So play with it with and without saying the words, and see what you're aware of and how that vroom, 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 vroom shows up for you in your awareness. Thank you for that question. Oh, okay. It's not just for your own family. So yes, as a professional, you can also use this. So if you work with families and there's conflict that you're facilitating, that you're maybe a mediator or an advocate for families, what if you ran this on your body before or during or after, which would be the most subtle but effective, the most elegant way for you to use this for the benefit of everyone involved? Then you'll have that clarity and ease and not be reactive, really be able to see all of the possible options of things that you could say, of things that you can propose. Yeah. This is what some of the things that I do when I'm working with the families that I'm with too. It helps me not feel like I have to always be talking, which is something that I really needed to work on, because I do love to talk and I can talk. And yet I recognize the power of silences and how I would get whispers of awareness. I would get information in those silences that would let me know what to say, when to say it, or not to say something. I would know if someone could receive what I was going to say or not before I said it. So then I would shut up and not say things that would blow things up more, or that would be unintentionally disrespectful. I mean, don't get me wrong, I still offend people. Sometimes it's because I feel like I need to say it to respect myself, and I already know ahead of the time they can't receive it. But if I don't say it, I feel like I would be disrespecting myself, dishonoring myself, or not living up to who I feel I am and know that I am. So, and then I'll go later on and may say something else. But sometimes people can't receive it because they'll never be able to receive it. And sometimes they can't receive it because they just can't receive it in that moment. And it's about finding the correct time and knowing when that time is. Okay. Does that answer your question? Yeah. Okay. Looking at, okay, cool. Yay. All right. And so the different speed of, so notice how my hands all of a sudden sped up. We just moved through some stuff. The speed doesn't mean it's going faster, slower, or being more or less effective. It's just how the hands read and acknowledge what is present right now, what is moving, what is not moving. And no matter what, every little bit helps, every little bit counts. So you forcing it to go faster or slower isn't actually going to be a way for you to have an increased receiver and a more effective session. So don't force it. Just notice how your body moves and notice how the person's body responds to what's going on and what you're doing. Okay. Okay, I'm looking here. Okay. All right. Okay. So Siris, there's a comment here in the question. Siris, I know you talk a lot about limiting patterns and beliefs. I got your relationship ebook, your quickbook on the 5 questions to ask to self-sabotage in relationships. And I really love it. And I'm very much interested in doing your coaching. I know that you look at the different patterns. And I know that for me, some of my patterns I've definitely learned from my family. How can I use this to let go of some of those patterns? Is there a way to do that, or is it only through coaching? Yes, you can absolutely use this body process to let go of those patterns. First and foremost, it's first allowing you to be aware of them. Okay, so I'm going to turn this back on. Okay, yoo-hoo! First, it allows you to be aware of them and clear of them. So it's trying to light, bloop, bloop, bloop. this is a flashlight I'm holding, by the way. And it helps you shine a light on them so you're not like, oh, I have no idea where this is coming from. It's like, oh, this is making me think of this moment with in my childhood where we were in the hospital, or this made me think of this moment in my childhood when my dad said this certain thing, whatever that is, so that you kind of know the source. But what I love about it is you don't have to relive it. It's not like you're experiencing it again and maybe re-traumatizing yourself if it was a traumatic event. It's very gentle. It's more from an observational stance. And then if you'd like, you can use the verbal clearings of the living and dying body process and the clearings that we teach people in the class to move it out of your body and out of your reality. So you can be aware of it. This is the awareness one, right? Where are you aware of living? Where are you aware of dying? Where is that in your body? Where is that in your reality? Okay. And then if you'd like, you can move it out of your body. You can move it out of it being relevant to you and holding it onto it to something that you can keep recreating over and over and over again. Would you like to let go of those patterns? So no, it doesn't have to be through coaching. You can take the class, you can take the taster classes where we talk about this as well and guide people through how to clear it. We have 3 different taster classes, part 1, part 2, and part 3, that's on the empoweringlightlanguage.com/living and dying page. If you scroll down to the bottom, there's a couple different tasters, and there's even the one we did in December on coming out of the dark. There's the awakening class as well. I'll tell you all the information about that, but there are 2 that are scheduled. And there's also having a private session. You can have a full session where that moves some of those patterns out of your body. The first couple times you have a session is really about the awareness piece and bringing things up to light, like the things that are buried and hidden, bringing it to the surface, bringing it to the surface, bringing it to the surface. And then you start brushing it off or you start washing it out, depending on the person. Some people, they benefit more from a cleanse type of energy where it's a wash, like a water energy, or some people like more of the fire and burning it away. Some people it's more of the wind or the brushing it off, like the earth, like the branches to 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 brush it off and sweep it away. And with each session, it gets deeper and deeper. So you might be just the surface gets brushed or washed or burnt away, and then it can actually be where it's another layer, another layer, another layer deeper. I love it, love it, love it. And with kids, it seems like from the first session, it's already super deep, which I'm just super amazed by. And it's such an invitation for all of us to receive more and to have that clarity even faster. So if you have a child that knows how to do this body process and they run it on you, it is super, super deep and really effective, like more effective even than adults, because they hold this space of no judgment, of I am magic, of course this is going to work thing that adults stop themselves from having because they're going into their heads, they're going into the analysis, they're looking for the evidence, they're not as connected to their bodies as these kiddos are. Which is another reason why I love working with kids, because I'm like, wait, I just went into my head about that. Let me get back into this energy. So yes, hopefully that answers your question. There's not any one way to approach it. This is just one tool, an additional tool that you can add that is a way for you to be clear on your current limiting patterns and then move beyond it and choose beyond it. And that's the thing, that choice is actually going to trump all of this. If you're aware of a pattern and you choose beyond it, you don't need to clear it. You're already going to outcreate it. You're already going to not have it be relevant to you and stop you any longer. And that's easier said than done, I know, for some of us. And that's why coaching can be really beneficial, because it holds you accountable to choosing what you know is going to work versus like, I'm going to think about it, I'm going to think about it, I'm going to think about it, but I'm going to keep stopping myself from actually taking action. And we think we all benefit from accountability partners. I know I have. I've had coaches, I have mentors and facilitators. It's really, really nice to have someone that has your back and that doesn't judge you for not taking the action, but then reminds you, remember how you wanted to do that? And what would it create if you did that? And let's have that, huh? Would you like that? Let's go. Yeah. Cheering you on. Ha, ha, ha. Sis, boom, ba. Ah. All right. Okay, so how does this affect your mood is a question here. So this comes to mind, this brings to mind a parent that reached out to me. And initially they reached out to me because they wanted to address the behavior of their little ones. It would think was at the time maybe 3 or 4 years old was the oldest, and then the youngest one was like 1 or 2. And it was really, really great because we could still affects change in the child's behavior, but we recognize that the joy or lack of joy at that point of the mom was really the priority. We needed to start there, and then it trickled down to the children. And that's what the kids want. They want their parents to be happy. They want to see you present and engaged and enjoying your life. So one of the things that happened was I was be running this body process while we were doing the coaching sessions and while we were talking about strategies that they could employ in their day-to-day living that would carve out more space for them to have them in their lives instead of it being all about the kids all of the time and then feeling like they had lost themselves and who they knew themselves to be. And as they were having more and more of them in their lives and in their day-to-day living, the kids' behavior changed, and also their responses to the behavior was less reactive because they weren't already coming from it as irritated of a place. You know, when our cup is more full and we are nurturing ourselves, we can see more clearly what is possible, what the people around us are asking for and requiring, and what is going to work for everyone involved. And I keep saying everyone involved because a lot of people make other people, like their kids or their spouses or the family, paramount. Like when my boyfriend was saying, oh, it's like the Fast and the Furious movies. It's, everything, family's everything, right? That Vin Diesel's character says. And it can be, but what if you included yourself in the family so that you could thrive? Remember, this is thriving with your family. If you don't include yourself in there, you don't get to thrive. You're not actually allowing yourself to be part of the family. You're like this outsider looking in, trying to puppet what's going on. Which gets into one of the other comments that was sent in about control. Let me see if I can find it. Remember reading that correctly? Okay. Yeah, let's take a moment. Let's pause, shake out our hands a little bit. We're gonna I kind of had a energy of like, oh, let's wait. I think we're done for right now for actually running it directly. A comment was sent in. Where are you? Here we go. Okay. Yeah, I find myself to be. I've been okay. No, I've been accused of being really controlling by my spouse, and I can see in some ways where that's the case. How can I fix this, change this so that I'm not so controlling because it's affecting our intimacy and it's affecting how I react with the kids and their issues with school. First, thank you for your vulnerability. Thank you for acknowledging that. That is not a small thing. And that's the first step, right? Is recognizing that, okay, this is something that I'd like to change. If we can't talk about something, we can't change it. So good on you that you're being willing to acknowledge that and recognize that that's something that would benefit from some shifting. So run this hand movement and turn on the living and dying body process when you're talking to your spouse about the different ways that your controlling behavior is affecting them. I don't know if it's a male or female, your spouse, and also how it's affecting your kids and and the family routines like bath time and cooking and all these different things, and see what awareness shows up. When you ask them as you're running this or after running it, okay, what are the next steps? What are the next steps I can take? What would create the most for all of us? Remember, creating more, living, what you add to create more, dying, what you let go of to create more. What would create the most for everybody? What pops into your head? It might be a picture, it might be a word, it might be a person that would contribute to your family having more ease. A lot of times I find that my families, when there's one or more people who have a controlling pattern, they don't have either systems in place. And maybe check out that, I think it was the March call where we talked about different organizational systems and creating space for the new. You can message me and I can send you the replay to that one or any of the other past calls that we've done. And the other piece, in addition to systems, is the support. That what I mentioned when we first started talking and starting our session today of isolation. A lot of families are super, super isolated. There's a lot of people that are raising kids and educating kids without the proper resources. And this is from teachers to parents to medical professionals. Like, if you don't have the proper resources, it can be more challenging. And I get it, and it's a valid concern. And so I'm wondering if there are ways to connect you to those resources, be it professionals or grant money. I've connected with people, depending on where you are in the world, to different organizations and non-for-profits that support families to try to make things easier for families. Have you looked into that? Because a lot of times that's part of what's going on. And then thirdly, when it comes to control, it's the pattern. So our friend that mentioned about their limiting patterns and letting them go, that question that I read aloud earlier. Well, what limiting patterns are here, and where did you learn this pattern? Did you have a parent or caregiver that either was very controlling as well, and that's how they raised you and that's their parenting style? Or did you have so much chaos in your childhood that your response was to control things, so you felt more capable, so you felt like you wouldn't be quite so blindsided? I mean, that's certainly the case with me. Was I had a parent that had a lot of systems and was very organized and was a big planner, and there was a lot of control in some ways, but they didn't control me and my behavior. They let me do what I needed to do, and they were very empowering, but there was a lot of schedules and appointments and calendars and visual reference. And so I learned that pattern, that if I take it too far, can be controlling. But that sweet spot of, oh, there's organization, there's communication, there's family meetings. Check out the call on, I think that was still the March one, on the organization and the communication. No, or last month, April, was communication. Yeah, I'm planting seeds for communication success. They're all piggyback off of each other, y'all. So yeah, those are the three factors that are often in play with controlling behavior. Which ones are the one that's relevant for you and your family? And run this hand movement, this first hand movement, on yourself and on your family. And you can get the energy of your family and have, like, you don't have to have them all with you in body, but you can think about your kids and your spouse and you, and if there's grandparents and aunts, you can get the energy of everybody in front of you as you're running this with your palms out toward them. And how much more space would that create? Notice how thinking about all the extended family kind of made the energy a little bit crunchier again and heavy. Yeah, I'm seeing some nods. Like, y'all perceive that? So use that to your advantage. Instead of being like, oh, that means I shouldn't talk to them, I should not even engage with them at all. Instead, be like, oh, what am I aware of with my extended family? Where am I aware of that in my body, in my mindset, in my reality? And moving on out. And what this does is, as it's moving it out, it's usually moving it out and into the earth or out the top of your head. For some of you, it's in both directions, like a lightsaber, like in Star Wars, or like a double waterfall. It doesn't matter which way you let go of it. It's that you let go of it, and it's not solid and dense and heavy in your body and in your world anymore. Okay, that's what I would love for each of you to have in your own unique way. Okay, there's some comments about respecting yourself and caring for others. I think we've addressed that basically already. Yes, and if you respect yourself and nurture yourself and have that self-care, you'll have more energy to care for others. But also, it's not that you do it from a space of compulsion or like this obligation, which there's a lot of obligation energies with families. It's one of the things that I invite people to look at when they're running this body process on themselves. It's like, where am I aware of obligation? Where am I aware of this and I have it in my body? Where in my body is it? And have your hands move to the obligation, where that is. So for some of you, it's the heart and the lungs. Yeah, pressure that we feel to meet expectations, to live out other people's expectations of us. It might be the gut, where you have that's thinking about certain family events. You get like tense, your abdomen gets tight, Maybe you have your digestive tract affected. I have somebody that they would have acid reflux after any time that they would think about, oh, they have to see their parents again or their grandparents. Your body's telling you these things. Are you willing to listen? Are you willing to listen? And then what are the infinite options that are available to you to choose from to address that? It may be not seeing the family member or seeing them in a certain location, getting another person to come with you when you see them, having an exit strategy where you have only a certain amount of time to see them. There's a lot of possible options here. Um, and really listening to those messages and getting that clarity of asking your body, okay, what's going to create the most? And then what's going to create the most here? And what's going to create the most here? And what's going to create the most here? And just continually being in that question and seeing what information pops up. In case if you have a picture or a thought or an idea show up, that's not the be all end all answer. It's not about answer, it's about information. And sometimes it's a series of actions, or it's moment to moment a different possibility is what's going to create the most. So follow that energy, follow that. Okay. um do, do, do. Okay, so yeah, okay, so some of you are asking for other examples of how what's showing up with this body process with families. So thank you. So many things. I had this is I think I've mentioned this in some of the other calls, but it's so powerful and lovely that I can't help but mention it often, because it's just one of those things that I was like, okay, this is what I was put on this planet to do. So one of our first living and dying body process classes, we used to call them awakening your capacities with living and dying. Now we just call it the awakening class. And in one of our first classes, there was a little girl. Her mom and her connected from France, and we had our amazing interpreter, Severine Latour, who was interpreting for the little girl. And the mom knew English pretty well, but was also benefiting from the interpretation. And they connected in, and throughout each hand movement, each session was you give and receive twice in the class, most of the time, depending on what the bodies are asking for. They were so playful, and they were laughing, and you could see them like dancing around and hopping around, and they had this little like comforter kind of mat on the floor that they were practicing on. And depending on who was giving and who was receiving, and the daughter would dance and do the movements all around her mom. And one of the things I loved about it was that for a lot of parents, we feel like it's giving and giving and giving to these kids, and we're not willing to receive from them. And the kids really want to contribute to us. They really want to feel like they can gift to you and make things easier for you and help them you out just as much as they love and are grateful for your support and love on them. And to see her just light up and like, I can do this, and to see how she was aware of how it was helping her mom, and it was making her mom laugh and lighten up her world, was really beautiful. And so that already alone was just amazing, was just one of my favorite things ever. And then after the class, we have a follow-up Zoom. So we have the class, and maybe a week or two. Back then we would take like 3 weeks afterwards, but now we have the follow-up within a week or two of the class to ask questions, to further remind people of some of the tools that mentioned in the class, to see how things are showing up. And as people have played around with the tools, to talk about what showed up and what was created. And so this little girl and her mom had a really, really cool experience where during the class and then afterwards, the daughter reported that she was being bullied by another girl in her school. And the mom did not know this before the class. And one of the things that the class's energies did was it allowed them to talk about things that they hadn't talked about before. And she, I think, was in like second or third grade, so like 8 or 9 years old. If I remember correctly, I'm gonna have to check on that. But you get the idea. She was in elementary school, and uh, my mom found out about the bully, and so they went to talk to the director or the principal of the school. That got involved. And then one of the things that the girl said was that she, after the class, felt more confident in speaking up and standing up for herself to her bully. So before she was kind of just taking it and like accepting it and running away or hiding, but not really directly confronting the bully. And she stood up for herself, and she was so proud of herself. She's like, and I told her this, and then this happened, and I'm not letting her say that to me. I'm not letting her do that to me anymore. And the mom was just so grateful for the class, and just so proud of her daughter for being able to have her voice in a way that she didn't even know her daughter needed to have her voice for the situation. So it's that's one of those things that, like, if you have a bully in your life, if you've been bullied before and you've locked that in your body and your reality, and you feel like you're less capable of having your voice, of standing up for yourself, of advocating for your needs, it's been really beautiful to see so many different examples of how this unlocks it from our bodies and allows us to have our voice and speak out for ourselves, for our kids, for anyone that we love. And that's such a great sign of loving on ourselves and respecting ourselves, to be able to know what to say, to be able to feel like there's the confidence and the clarity to say it, to take that action, and then receive the results from that honoring of yourself. So I really love that. We've had people, there in my YouTube channel, you can check out a video of like, what have people been saying about the living and dying body process. There's like 2 testimonial videos. One is me reporting some of the stuff that people have said. Another one is actual quotes from people who've sent things in. So definitely check that out. I'm going to see if I can remember to include that in the email where you guys get the replay of today's group chat. But from skeletal issues to pain things, I had a woman that reached out to me that was having a pain in her shoulder chronically, and nothing she did was working. And then she received the session, and she already felt way more relief after a session. And then we had a couple more, and she stopped having that as an issue. So it's anything physical, spiritual, financial. I mean, there's just been so many different ways as this has shown up. And it's it's really gratifying to me, because I really would love for every child in the world, for every educator, every parent to have this and have this beautiful rippling out effect. Because if more of people have this in their repertoire, think about the world that we live in. Talk about being a different possibility, huh? Hmm. Okay. I think those are all the questions and comments. Any other ones that y'all have before we part ways today? So now look in the chat. Okay. So next steps, as you're writing, if you're writing anything, I'll address it. So next steps, if you enjoyed what you experienced, if you picked up on some of these energies and would like to have more of that, there's a couple of things we can do. We can do a private session, either in person here in Charlotte, North Carolina, where I'm at, or I've had people send me like travel to them, and they get a group together, and I do a bunch of sessions for people where you are. We do virtual sessions. That's what's wonderful about this body process. As you've noticed by listening to this in replay or by being here on live, that you are able to perceive those energies. So you don't actually have to have physical touch to receive the benefits of this body process. So a full session is about 60 minutes. And for those of you that it's the first time receiving a session, the price is $125 US. Or if it's the second onward, the regular price is $175 US. So I'll include the link to that for you to pick a time that's convenient for you. And you can just let me know if it's going to be in person or virtually. I think for most of you, it'll probably be virtual. And then we also have those tasters that I mentioned. There's a 3-part series that we did a couple of years back, except for how we do the clearings, the verbal clearings. Everything else is still relevant in those tasters. And you can get all 3 of those tasters for a total of $25. So each one is about 30 minutes. So 90 minutes of content, 3 different hand movements and informations, all only for $25. And you get to add that to your repertoire. And then we also have the Coming Out of the Dark taster that we did, and the Elements of Living, which is a taster, but not, it's a little bit deeper than the tasters, because you actually get to play with the elements of living that come through in the living and dying body process. So you don't have to have had the living and dying body process class, the awakening class, to play with the elements of living. But what it does is it looks at where it's either activated and alert, hidden and buried, asleep, or completely blocked. Your awareness of these different elements of living, these ingredients that support you and help you create a life that actually is worthwhile for you. And that one I think is like around $89 for all the 9 modules of the series. It's a ton of content. I think it's like 45 minutes for each module, and there's 9 of them, and you get that for like less than $100. So definitely recommend that. That's on empoweringlightlanguage.com/elements of living, or you can find it on the Living and Dying Body Process page of the website. And then lastly, I promised to mention this, we have 2 awakening classes coming up. We have one on Saturday, June 24th, for 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern in North America. So if you're in Europe, and I know some of you are in Europe, that would start instead of 9 a.m., it would be like 1500 your time, 15 o'clock. I forget how to say that with the military time. And then it's a 7-hour class with breaks and lunch breaks and meal breaks and things like that. And then the other one is Saturday, November 4th, also from 9 to 4 p.m. Eastern, the U.S. and Eastern of North America. And so consider the time differences and all of that. I think that with Europe, it's 6 hours ahead. For the UK, it's 5 hours ahead for us. And then if you're in the Pacific coast or any of the other time zones of the US, there's a time and date link for all of the classes right on the landing page. So you don't have to calculate it for yourself. We try to make it super, super easy for you. And check out our episodes on the Choosing a Different Future podcast. We've done a lot of episodes on children, on families, on having your fantastical voice, on choosing how to live in an empowered way where you're nurturing yourself and respecting yourself. And so you can search any different keywords on the Inspired Choices Network or through the podcast link if you go to the Choosing a Different Future show podcast and then search within all those different topics and titles. And then lastly, for those of you that would like a consultation to get personalized tips and tools for your family and to consider the possibility of coaching with me, directly working with me and having a personalized plan for yourself or for your family, I offer consultations for $50. They're 45-minute consultations, and I can include the link to that on the replay email. It is also in the website in empoweringlightlanguage.com. Any other comments? Yay, you're more relaxed. Yay. Okay, yes, I'm gonna have to listen to this again later because I can't even consider all of your options right now because I'm so like blissed out. Awesome. Yeah, enjoy the space that you created. Great, great, great. Can you imagine having this during moments where otherwise you would have been really tense and stressed out and using this tool? Very, very cool. Excited to share this with my kids. Yay! Share it with all the kiddos. Yes, including your inner child. Share and love on your inner child. Awesome, awesome. Looks like those are all the comments for right now. Thank you, everyone. If you catch this later on or as you're processing this information and playing with this initial hand movement and the energies of the living and dying body process, if you have any other questions or comments, feel free to email me at empoweringlightlanguage@gmail.com. Reach out to me. Y'all can reach me through Facebook Messenger as well, through text and cell phone. You have multiple ways of reaching out. But thank you for being here. Thank you for playing around with these energies and for being willing to explore what you know about exuberant living. And we will see each other next time. Our next call is going to be June 26th. Yes. And it's all about having your fantastical voice with family. So June 26th is the next call at 1 p.m. Eastern North America. And if you haven't already gotten a copy of the Being a Different Possibility quickbook, grab a copy of that as well. That is also on the website. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a wonderful day, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are. Bye for now.